This alien heiress mocked his value, until he became her only hope. The sun was low on the horizon of the small human outpost on the edge of the Helios sector, casting long shadows across the metallic domes and the scattered launch pads. In the quiet of the early evening, most of the engineers had already left the work bays, but one man remained, bent over a half-assembled drone. His hands moved carefully, precise and practiced, adjusting tiny circuits with a skill that came from years of trial and error. The outpost was small, hardly more than a collection of workshops and living quarters, but it had earned a reputation for producing human ingenuity in systems that even some alien technicians struggled to understand. That man, named Carter, did not care much for reputation. He was content with the rhythm of his work, the quiet satisfaction of solving a problem others had given up on. He wiped his palms on a rag, listening to the faint hum of the drone's core as it came alive, and he allowed himself a small smile. At that moment, he had no idea that his life was about to be turned upside down by visitors from the Xyrthian Empire, a race whose power rivaled entire human fleets. The first Xyrthian ship appeared above the horizon like a silver arrow cutting through the atmosphere. It hovered with impossible grace, reflecting the dying sunlight off its sleek hull. The outpost's sensors had been programmed to track incoming traffic, but they could not prepare any human for the presence of beings who had mastered technologies that made gravity and energy secondary concerns. Carter straightened, brushing off his hands, as the docking bays opened with a soft hiss to welcome the alien delegation. Among the delegation was their heiress, Liara. Her presence was immediately noticeable, not just because of her elegant armor that shimmered with subtle energy patterns, but because of her expression, a mixture of arrogance and curiosity, her violet eyes sweeping the human outpost with thinly veiled disdain. She stepped onto the platform, her movements precise, almost too perfect to be natural. Humans nearby whispered about her beauty, about the way her every motion seemed planned and flawless. Carter ignored all of that. He had no interest in alien beauty or whispers. He was focused on his work, which apparently made him the perfect target for her mockery. Liara's first words, directed at Carter, carried a sharp tone, carefully calculated to sting. "This is the team responsible for maintaining these relics," she asked, glancing at the drones and equipment with a raised brow. "I expected more. Perhaps humans are capable of bigger things, but so far I see small machines and small minds." Carter looked up from his workstation. His hands paused midair, but his face betrayed none of the irritation that bubbled beneath his calm exterior. He tilted his head slightly, meeting her gaze evenly. "These relics keep the outpost functioning," he said simply. "They may be small, but they work." Liara's lips curved into a faint smirk. "They work because someone shows them how, I suppose. Do you do all of this yourself?" she asked, her tone dripping with superiority. "A human engineer, I had thought your species valued cooperation, yet here you are, alone among broken parts." Carter didn't answer immediately. He had learned long ago that alien arrogance often revealed more than it concealed. It was easy to underestimate someone who didn't seem to care about appearances or status. He set his tools down and motioned toward the drone. "It flies on its own power now. The calculations were corrected, the circuits realigned. You can check it if you like." Liara's eyes narrowed as she studied the drone, clearly expecting it to fail. She activated her personal scanner, a device that could detect power flows and structural integrity, and her expression shifted just slightly. The readings were perfect. The drone was not just functional, it was efficient, nearly flawless in its design. She turned her gaze back to Carter, trying to hide the flicker of surprise. "Impressive for a human, but I suspect luck more than skill. Surely someone instructed you." Carter allowed himself a small chuckle, a sound that was quiet but filled with a confidence that seemed to irritate her more than flattery could have. "No one instructed me, just observation, trial, and error," he said plainly. Liara shook her head, still smirking. "Arrogant," she muttered under her breath, loud enough for a few humans to hear. "I will enjoy watching how long your luck lasts." Despite her words, Carter noticed something in her stance, a subtle hesitation. Liara, for all her pride, had not predicted that the drone would operate so perfectly. The observation gave him a quiet satisfaction, but he didn't let it show. He knew better than to provoke her further, at least for now. The rest of the delegation arrived, a mix of nobles and advisors, all moving with the same elegance as Liara, but none carried her same sharpness. They followed her lead, whispering among themselves, occasionally glancing at the humans with mild curiosity. It was clear that the humans in the outpost were considered inferior, nothing more than temporary caretakers of tools the aliens might someday need. The day passed slowly, with Carter showing minor systems to various members of the delegation, all under Liara's scrutinizing eyes. She asked questions, each laced with an edge, as if testing his patience deliberately. Yet with every answer, every simple human solution that made complex alien systems work efficiently, her expression flickered between skepticism and grudging respect. By the time evening approached, the outpost's quiet was broken by a sharp warning from the sensors. A disturbance in the nearby asteroid belt had been detected, an anomaly moving too fast, too large to be any known asteroid. Carter was the first to notice, frowning at the display. The readings suggested an artificial construct, a massive object emitting energy signatures inconsistent with any natural formation. He called over Liara and her advisors. "This shouldn't be here," he said. "It's moving on a trajectory that could bring it close to the colony. The energy readings suggest it's powered, likely not friendly." The alien advisors exchanged glances, some murmuring their agreement, others unsure. Liara's expression hardened, a mixture of irritation and curiosity. "Surely your human sensors are mistaken," she said. "You deal with relics, not threats of this scale." Carter's jaw tightened, but he remained calm. "Check again. The readings are precise. It's not a mistake." "If we don't act, it could damage the colony." Liara's eyes narrowed. She clearly did not like taking orders from a human, especially one she had openly mocked just hours before. Still, she recognized the truth in his words. Pride and ego were luxuries she couldn't afford when facing an unknown danger. Despite her hesitation, she allowed the humans to prepare defenses. Carter coordinated the adjustments to the outpost's energy shields, integrating his knowledge of human systems with alien tech in a way that was unconventional but highly effective. He worked alongside the delegation's engineers, demonstrating a calm authority that surprised many. Even the Xyrthians, who prided themselves on their advanced technology, had to follow his instructions. As night fell, the first signs of the approaching construct became visible. A faint glow appeared among the distant asteroids, growing steadily as it moved closer. The humans watched from the observation deck, tense but ready. Liara remained near Carter, her expression conflicted. She had mocked him earlier, but now, the survival of her delegation and her family's reputation might depend entirely on his skill. She spoke quietly, almost to herself. "I didn't think humans could be this capable." Carter didn't respond, focusing on his calculations, but he noticed the change in her tone. Pride still lingered, but curiosity and grudging respect were breaking through the mockery she had worn like armor. The night deepened, and the construct's glow grew brighter. Carter's heart pounded, not with fear but with anticipation. Every sensor, every system, every small calculation mattered now. The coming hours would test not only his skill, but the very assumptions Liara had made about the humans she thought were insignificant. By dawn, the construct would reveal itself fully, and the outpost, and possibly the Xyrthian delegation, would face a challenge unlike any they had encountered before. Carter tightened his grip on the controls, ready for whatever came next. For the first time, Liara seemed to see him not as a human to be mocked, but as someone whose mind and ingenuity might just save them all. The stars above the Helios sector glimmered cold and distant, unaware of the quiet war being waged beneath them. Carter adjusted the drone once more, watching it hum steadily, a small symbol of human persistence and skill. Around him, the alien delegation moved with cautious precision, but their eyes occasionally flicked toward him, hesitant and uncertain. And in that uncertain moment, a fragile understanding began to form between the arrogant alien Heiress and the quiet human who had long been overlooked. The events of the coming day would decide whose judgment was correct: the proud, centuries-old assumptions of a galactic empire or the underestimated ingenuity of a single human engineer. Carter didn't know it yet, but the mockery, the arrogance, and the disdain were only the beginning. What lay ahead would test everything about humans and aliens alike. And it would reveal a truth that few could ignore. Sometimes, the smallest minds, working quietly and carefully, can change the fate of entire worlds. The first light of dawn painted the Helios sector with pale orange hues, but there was little beauty in the sight that greeted the outpost. The massive construct had grown closer, its silhouette now unmistakably mechanical, massive plates of unknown alloy reflecting the morning sun. It drifted silently among the asteroids, yet the hum of its engines vibrated faintly through the outpost's sensors. Carter studied the readings, noting the unnatural energy patterns and the sheer size of the craft. It was a warship, unlike any human or alien design he had seen before. Liara stood beside him, her violet eyes fixed on the holographic projection he had activated. The delicate curve of her brow had tightened, and her usual smirk was gone. She watched his hands as they moved over the controls, adjusting sensor arrays and shields in ways she didn't immediately understand but could clearly see were working. "You're certain it's hostile?" she asked, her tone sharper than the day before. Carter didn't look up. "Every reading points to it. The energy patterns are inconsistent with civilian or exploration vessels. Whoever built this knew how to avoid detection until it got close." Liara studied him, her pride warring with the truth. Just yesterday, she had mocked his skills. Now every calculation, every decision he made seemed to pull the pieces of the puzzle together in ways her expensive advisors had failed to anticipate. She felt a flicker of unease at being so wrong about him. Carter continued, pointing at the display. "It's coming straight for the asteroid field. If it enters it, the outpost will have no clear line of fire. We'll need to act fast." One of her advisors, an older Xyrthian named Vorin, stepped forward. "Human, do you propose we attack? This is far beyond your typical engineering problems. A wrong move could destroy us all." Carter kept his calm. "Attack is only part of it. If we rely purely on firepower, we lose. I've found weaknesses in similar energy fields. The ship is massive, yes, but its design focuses on offense over defense. With the right approach, we can neutralize it before it reaches the colony." Liara's eyes narrowed. "And you expect me to trust you after I saw how you handled yesterday's drones?" Carter finally met her gaze. There was no arrogance, only quiet certainty. "I don't need trust, I need cooperation, that's enough." For a moment, Liara said nothing. Then she nodded, reluctantly, signaling her delegation to follow his plan. Even if pride still urged her to resist, the threat was too real to ignore. The hours that followed were tense. Carter coordinated human and alien engineers alike, integrating their different technologies. Alien shields were powerful but rigid, designed to withstand large-scale attacks, while human systems were smaller, faster, and adaptable. Carter created a hybrid defense, using human ingenuity to patch gaps the aliens had overlooked. His calculations were precise, adjusting energy flows to cover weak points and create firing corridors that the warship's massive guns couldn't predict. Liara watched silently, occasionally offering a suggestion but deferring to his expertise. She had been wrong to underestimate him. He moved with quiet authority, issuing instructions that were clear and efficient. Even Vorin, who had been openly skeptical, followed without hesitation. As the construct drew nearer, a sudden jolt shook the outpost. Alarms blared, and sensors registered the first salvo of energy blasts fired from the warship. They were powerful, destructive, and intended to test the outpost's defenses. Carter's hands flew over the controls, redirecting energy shields to absorb the brunt of the attack. Sparks flew along the interface panels as systems overloaded briefly, but his quick adjustments held the shield steady. Liara's pulse quickened as she watched. For the first time, she felt a true fear, not for herself, but for the human whose skills she had mocked just yesterday. Carter's calm focus contrasted with the panic of some of her own advisors, and she realized that he might be the only reason anyone would survive this assault. The warship's next move was unexpected. It launched small drone-like craft that swarmed toward the outpost, each armed with weapons that could pierce most shielding. Carter analyzed their flight patterns quickly and gave precise instructions. "The drones follow a predictable path. Intercept them here and here. Human turrets handle the left flank, alien energy cannons cover the right. Timing is critical, don't fire early." Liara's delegation hesitated. The drones moved too fast, and many feared a misstep could mean destruction. Carter noticed their hesitation. "Now!" he barked. The combined firepower of human and alien weapons erupted in unison, tearing the drones apart mid-flight. Liara's eyes widened. The humans, whom she had dismissed as fragile and small-minded, had adapted quickly to an alien threat. Carter's coordination had turned their panic into precision. A sudden explosion rocked the observation deck. Smoke curled from a secondary sensor array, but Carter didn't falter. He moved swiftly to reroute power, restoring lost functionality with barely a pause. Liara caught herself staring, unblinking. His calm under pressure, his ability to see solutions others could not, began to dismantle the arrogance she had carried like armor. The warship retreated momentarily, repositioning itself behind an asteroid cluster. Its size made it difficult to maneuver quickly, but it was obvious that it had not anticipated the efficiency of the outpost's defenses. Carter's eyes narrowed as he studied its movement. "It's calculating," he said quietly. "It's adapting to our response, but not fast enough." "There's a pattern in the adjustments. I can use it." Liara leaned closer. "What do you mean?" she asked, her tone cautious. Carter explained his plan, his words precise but simple. He would use the outpost's smaller, faster drones to bait the warship's weapons, drawing them into a sequence that would expose the primary energy core. The humans and aliens would then fire in unison at that weak point, potentially disabling the ship without risking the entire colony. Liara listened, her skepticism battling with the growing recognition of his genius. "And you're sure it will work?" she asked. Carter met her gaze, calm as ever. "I'm sure it's our best option. Doing nothing is certain death." Minutes later, the plan was in motion. Carter personally piloted the bait drones, guiding them with skillful precision through the asteroid field. The warship tracked them, firing relentlessly, but each shot was carefully predicted, and every drone moved in patterns designed to exploit the warship's slow adaptation. Liara watched from the observation deck, feeling her pulse race. She had mocked him, thought him insignificant, yet here he was, leading a coordinated effort that could save her entire delegation. For the first time, she realized that human ingenuity was not just clever, it was unpredictable in ways that even her advanced empire struggled to understand. The final moment arrived when Carter identified the energy core, glowing faintly through the warship's hull. "Fire now," he shouted. The outpost's combined weaponry struck in perfect timing. There was a blinding flash as the energy core overloaded, sending a shockwave through the asteroid field. The warship trembled, shuddered, and then drifted lifelessly, its massive engines dying in sequence. Liara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. She turned to Carter, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and disbelief. I underestimated you," she admitted, her voice quieter than usual. Carter shrugged, wiping a trickle of sweat from his brow. "I didn't underestimate you," he said simply. "I just assumed you'd listen if the truth mattered more than pride." For a long moment, she said nothing, staring at him. Pride, arrogance, and the condescension that had defined her earlier attitude seemed to fall away. For the first time, she saw a human not as small, fragile, or insignificant, but as capable, resilient, and creative, qualities that her empire often overlooked. Vorin stepped forward, nodding slowly. "Human, you have proven yourself." The heiress was right to be cautious, but she should also recognize talent when she sees it. "Today, you saved us all." Liara inclined her head, acknowledging both Carter and the older Xyrthian. "Yes," she said finally, her voice steady. "You saved us all." The warship, now powerless, floated silently among the asteroids. The danger had passed, but the tension in the outpost remained. Carter knew this was only the beginning. Whoever had created the rogue vessel had not acted alone, and the pattern of attacks suggested a larger threat lurking beyond the asteroid belt. Liara turned to him, a new determination in her gaze. "Tell me," she said, "how did you know it would respond that way?" Carter smiled faintly. "Humans think differently. We notice patterns others dismiss, improvise when things don't go as expected, and adapt in ways no rigid system can predict. That's all. It's not magic, it's just human." She studied him for a long time, silent. Finally, she nodded, a subtle but significant gesture of respect. For the first time, she realized that humans, underestimated as they were, might be her only hope in facing the dangers of the galaxy. As the outpost worked to repair minor damages, Carter returned to his drones, adjusting circuits and recalibrating systems. Liara remained nearby, watching him not with mockery but with curiosity, the seeds of a reluctant trust beginning to grow. The day had tested their skills, their courage, and their judgments, and one thing was clear. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again, not if they had Carter on their side. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the asteroid belt, the remnants of the warship sent a faint signal, a warning that the threat was not over, that greater dangers were yet to come. Carter didn't flinch. He had faced impossible odds before, and he would do it again. The Heiress had mocked his value, but he had proven it, and the next challenge would demand even more of him. The outpost was quiet again, but the calm was deceptive. Carter knew that the rogue warship had been only the first test, a warning shot sent by enemies who had not yet revealed themselves. Sensors detected faint energy traces that suggested the warship had been controlled remotely, a puppet of a larger force. Carter studied the data with careful attention, tracing patterns, predicting movements, and quietly preparing a plan. Liara, still standing beside him, had grown restless. Her usual poise had softened into something closer to concern, and she watched him work with a new respect. She had been wrong to mock him, and the experience of watching a single human coordinate the defense of an outpost against a vessel built by a technologically superior empire had shaken her pride. "You're planning to go after them," she said, breaking the silence. Carter didn't look up immediately. He traced the energy trail across the projection of nearby space. "Yes," he said finally. "If we let them control the field from afar, more attacks will follow. They tested us, and now they will escalate. The only way to stop them is to strike at the source." Liara's eyes widened. "You expect us to leave the safety of the outpost, to follow a human plan into enemy territory?" Carter turned to her, calm but unwavering. "I don't expect anything. I need cooperation. You choose to follow or not, but this cannot be ignored. If we wait, more of your fleet, more of this sector will be at risk. This is the only way." She studied him for a long moment, the weight of her decisions pressing against her pride. She had never allowed herself to follow someone she had once mocked, and yet she could see no flaw in his logic, no weakness in his reasoning. The confidence that radiated from him was not arrogance, it was preparation, skill, and clarity. Finally, she nodded. "We will follow your plan, but you will understand this. Failure is not an option. My family, my people, they cannot afford it." Carter gave a small nod. "Neither can we." The preparations were quick but precise. Carter worked alongside human and alien engineers, integrating systems and retrofitting the outpost's small fleet of ships for a long-range strike. The ships were far smaller than anything the enemy possessed, but that was precisely their advantage. Their speed and maneuverability allowed them to navigate asteroid fields and debris, while Carter's calculations ensured they could exploit weaknesses in larger vessels. Liara chose a single ship to accompany him, a sleek Zyerthian craft that rivaled human ships in speed and firepower. She boarded quietly, her expression unreadable but her eyes betraying a hint of nervousness. Carter noticed this, but he said nothing. He had learned that alien pride often made direct confrontation useless. Actions spoke louder than words. As the fleet left the outpost, the vastness of space stretched around them, cold and silent except for the hum of engines and the faint chatter of navigational systems. Carter led the formation, his mind calculating angles, energy flows, and timing down to the smallest detail. "Approaching the coordinates now," one of the human pilots reported. Carter studied the readouts. "Good, stay in formation. They will try to detect us, but they won't expect human improvisation." Liara watched him, curiosity mixing with caution. "Human improvisation?" she asked. Carter smiled faintly. "We think differently, we adapt, we use what others see as flaws to our advantage. You'll see soon enough." The first signs of the enemy appeared as faint distortions in space, energy waves that shimmered like ripples on a pond. The fleet slowed, adjusting their approach while Carter analyzed the signals. "It's a trap," he said simply. "They want us to think the path is clear. It is not. We'll need to bait them carefully." Liara's eyes narrowed, but she remained silent, trusting him despite the anxiety that gripped her. She had been taught to trust her instincts, her experience, but now she had to learn to trust another species entirely, one she had once considered inferior. Carter directed the fleet in a series of maneuvers that seemed chaotic to anyone watching, small ships darting in different directions, weaving through asteroids and debris. To an outsider, it might have looked reckless, but every movement had a purpose. The energy distortions responded exactly as Carter predicted, revealing the hidden positions of enemy drones and automated defense systems. The first engagement began suddenly. Enemy drones emerged from the shadows of asteroids, firing energy pulses that could slice through hulls with ease. Carter's fleet responded with human precision and alien power combined. The Xyrthian ship under Liara's command fired in coordination with human drones, covering every angle, every possible escape route. Liara could hardly believe the synergy. She had assumed humans would be a liability, slow and predictable, but they moved with a rhythm and unpredictability that the enemy had not accounted for. Carter guided them, adjusting every movement in real time, his calculations anticipating enemy reactions before they occurred. Amid the chaos, one of the enemy drones broke formation, heading directly for Liara's ship. Her shields flared as it fired, but Carter's voice came through the comm system calmly, directing her maneuver. "Bank left 40 degrees, then roll, fire on my signal." She executed the maneuver perfectly, barely avoiding the energy blast, and fired at the exposed weak point Carter had identified. The drone exploded, sending debris scattering through space. Liara exhaled sharply, impressed despite herself. "This human," she muttered under her breath, "he actually knows what he's doing." Carter's voice crackled in her ear. "I always do. Focus on the next wave." The battle continued, intense and relentless. The enemy deployed wave after wave of drones, each more sophisticated than the last. Carter adapted quickly, using human logic to outthink the mechanical patterns. Where alien engineers would have relied on brute force, he used agility, improvisation, and careful timing to turn each attack into an advantage. Hours passed, and the fleet began to gain ground. Enemy drones were destroyed, their energy fields disrupted, and the hidden command ships became visible through the gaps Carter had created. Each step forward revealed more of the enemy's strategy, and Carter adjusted his plan on the fly. Liara, who had once considered him insignificant, now found herself following his lead without question. She realized that she had misjudged humanity entirely. The human mind, unencumbered by centuries of rigid tradition and protocol, had a flexibility that even her empire's greatest minds lacked. Finally, they reached the core of the enemy formation, a massive command vessel, far larger than anything the human fleet had faced, surrounded by defensive drones and energy barriers. Carter studied it, calculating angles of attack, energy fluctuations, and the timing of shield cycles. "This is it," he said. "The core is exposed when it rotates every 32 seconds. We hit it precisely and the rest will collapse." Liara nodded, tension evident in her posture. "And if we miss?" Carter's expression remained calm. "We won't." The fleet adjusted their positions, waiting for the exact moment. Carter's voice guided them through each step, his instructions concise and clear. The human and alien crews worked in perfect synchronization, a testament to his leadership and ingenuity. When the moment arrived, the combined firepower of human drones and Xyrthian ships struck the core. A massive explosion rocked the command vessel, sending shockwaves through space. Drones scattered, shields failed, and the vessel began to drift, powerless and defeated. Liara exhaled in disbelief. She had witnessed something she never thought possible, a human not only surviving but leading the defeat of an enemy force far beyond the capacity of her empire. Carter turned to her, his calm demeanor unshaken. "It's not luck. It's preparation, observation, and adaptation. You can mock humans all you want, but this is what we do when our lives depend on it." She studied him, a mixture of respect and awe filling her gaze. "I see that now. You were right. I was wrong." Carter shrugged lightly. "It doesn't matter who was right yesterday. What matters is surviving today and preparing for tomorrow. They will return, and when they do, we need to be ready." Liara nodded slowly, understanding the truth in his words. Her arrogance had been tempered by necessity, her pride replaced with a newfound respect for the capabilities of humans. She had mocked his value, yet here he stood, unshaken, unyielding, and undeniably vital. As they returned to the outpost, the stars stretched endlessly around them, silent witnesses to the unfolding events. Carter remained focused, analyzing energy readings, repairing minor systems on the fly, and ensuring the fleet remained intact. Liara stayed close, her eyes following him as though she were seeing him for the first time. For the first time, she realized that the galaxy had underestimated humanity, and perhaps it was time to reconsider everything she had been taught. Humans were clever, resourceful, and willing to take risks others would not. In the vastness of space, those qualities could be the difference between life and death, and now she understood that her survival might depend on them. Carter glanced at her, sensing her thoughts. "You'll learn," he said softly. "Humans may seem small, insignificant, or weak, but when it matters most, we find ways to survive, to adapt, and to win. That's what makes us valuable." Liara didn't respond immediately. She simply watched him, her expression thoughtful. The mockery, the doubts, the condescension, they were gone, replaced by recognition of a truth she could no longer deny. The fleet approached the outpost again, battered but victorious. The battle had tested not only their skills but their trust in one another. Liara had begun to see Carter not as a human to be mocked, but as a mind capable of extraordinary strategy and courage. And as the outpost's lights came into view, Carter already planned the next steps. The enemies had been defeated, but the greater threat, the source behind the rogue warship, remained. Liara, now quiet and thoughtful, followed his lead, realizing that the human she had once dismissed might be the only one capable of facing what came next. Somewhere in the darkness of space, beyond the light of the stars, the true architects of the attack watched and waited. They had underestimated humans, as countless others had before. But now they had discovered a problem far greater than they had imagined. Humans did not just survive, they adapted, improvised, and thrived where others would fail. Carter knew the war was far from over. Yet he smiled faintly, confident that no matter the challenge, humans, and this unlikely alliance with the Heiress, would find a way. And for Liara, pride had been replaced with understanding. The galaxy was changing, and the smallest of creatures, the quietest of minds, could turn the tide of events in ways even the mightiest empires could not foresee. The aftermath of the battle left the outpost in a fragile calm. Repairs were underway, and the fleet was restored to operational condition as quickly as human hands and alien technology could manage. Carter walked through the workshops and docking bays, observing each team with quiet focus, checking circuits, recalibrating sensors, and correcting minor misalignments. Every movement was purposeful, every decision reflected a mind trained not just in engineering, but in thinking ahead, predicting outcomes, and adapting to changing circumstances. Liara followed him silently, her usual confident demeanor softened into a reflective state. She had witnessed firsthand the human capacity for improvisation, the calm precision under extreme pressure, and the uncanny ability to see solutions others could not. For the first time, she was forced to reconsider everything she thought she knew about humans. "Do you ever stop working?" she asked quietly, watching him adjust the thrusters on one of the repaired ships. Carter glanced at her briefly. "Not when there's a problem to solve," he replied simply. "Even small issues can become big ones if ignored." Liara frowned slightly. "I always assumed your species relied on luck. I thought humans made mistakes that others could foresee and correct. I see now that I was wrong." Carter smiled faintly, but his eyes never left the ship. "We make mistakes, yes, but we also learn fast, we improvise, we adapt. And when it matters most, we survive." She studied him quietly. It was a rare moment for her to see the calm confidence of someone who did not rely on status, rank, or legacy. Her own empire had taught her that power, experience, and tradition dictated outcomes. She had never considered that a mind unburdened by centuries of protocol could accomplish more than armies or fleets. The quiet was broken by a sudden alert from the sensors. Carter stiffened, his eyes scanning the readings. "They're coming," he said calmly, though tension tightened his jaw. "The source of the attack, the one controlling the rogue warship, they've made their move. It's not just a warning anymore, they intend to escalate." Liara stepped forward. "How far away are they?" "Too close," Carter replied. "They're fast, too fast for conventional fleets to intercept. We'll have to rely on strategy, not numbers." The next hours were spent in preparation. Carter coordinated the human engineers with the alien fleet, retrofitting ships for speed and agility, devising paths through asteroid fields and debris clouds, and creating feints that would lure the enemy into vulnerable positions. His instructions were precise, each movement calculated to exploit patterns the enemy would not anticipate. Liara watched, noting how the humans adapted. When a drone misfired or a ship struggled with coordination, Carter was there, correcting immediately, adjusting timing, and turning potential failure into advantage. She realized that human thinking was not limited by rules or tradition. It was free, flexible, and uniquely suited for survival. When the enemy approached, the fleet was ready. Unlike before, this force was larger, faster, and more cunning. They had clearly learned from the previous encounter, anticipating some of the strategies Carter had employed. Yet, he remained calm, guiding his team with confidence, adjusting on the fly, predicting enemy behavior before it happened. The first wave of enemy ships emerged, fast and aggressive. Carter's fleet responded immediately. Humans and aliens fired in coordinated bursts, covering one another's blind spots. Carter piloted a small strike craft, weaving through debris and energy fire with expert precision. Liara followed closely in her ship, trusting his commands implicitly, though her fingers still hovered over her console controls, ready to act on instinct. The battle escalated quickly. Enemy ships fired waves of energy pulses, each one capable of slicing through the hulls of even the strongest vessels. Carter's fleet moved with synchronized precision, avoiding the worst of the attacks and turning the enemy's patterns against them. Every move was calculated, yet improvisation remained central. When a drone swarm unexpectedly shifted formation, Carter adjusted immediately, rerouting shields and issuing commands faster than the enemy could respond. Liara realized that his mind worked differently from any strategist she had known. He did not rely on brute force or preset patterns. He observed, predicted, adapted, and executed with a speed that seemed almost instinctual. Her pride had taught her to distrust humans, but now she understood that his intelligence was something no empire could fully anticipate or counter. Midway through the battle, an enemy frigate broke formation and targeted Liara's ship directly. Shields flared and her advisors shouted warnings, but Carter's voice came clearly through the comm system. "Bank left 30 degrees now. Fire on my signal," she followed precisely. The frigate's energy blast passed harmlessly by, and Carter's human-led squad fired at the exposed engines of the enemy ship, causing a massive explosion that sent it drifting, powerless. Liara exhaled sharply, both impressed and unnerved. You anticipate everything," she muttered over the comm. "Not everything," Carter replied, "just enough to survive." The battle raged for hours, but Carter's strategies gradually turned the tide. The enemy, despite superior numbers and technology, could not predict human ingenuity. They fell into traps, misjudged feints, and exposed weak points that Carter exploited with a mix of human creativity and precision timing. As the enemy flagship emerged, larger and more imposing than anything they had seen, Carter observed carefully. Its energy shields were strong, but patterns emerged in its firing sequences. Every 35 seconds, a slight fluctuation appeared, a momentary vulnerability in the otherwise perfect defenses. "This is it," he said. "The core will be exposed for exactly 12 seconds in each cycle. Hit it at that moment and we can disable the ship before it reaches the colony." Liara nodded, tension in her posture. "And if we miss," Carter shrugged, though his eyes were calm and unflinching, "then we adjust. Humans always adjust." The fleet moved into position, small ships darting around the larger flagship like insects, each human and alien vessel following precise paths. Carter piloted his own strike craft, weaving expertly through energy fire and debris. The enemy fired relentlessly, but Carter's timing, prediction, and improvisation allowed the fleet to avoid the worst of the attacks. When the moment came, Carter gave the command, "Fire!" A coordinated volley of energy struck the enemy flagship's core, perfectly timed with the fluctuation in the shields. There was a blinding flash, followed by a cascade of explosions that disabled weapons and propulsion systems. The ship shuddered and began to drift, powerless among the stars. Liara watched in awe, realizing fully the extent of Carter's capabilities. He had not only outmaneuvered a superior enemy, but had done so with a calm precision that no amount of alien technology could match. For the first time, she admitted to herself that humans were more than she had ever imagined. The fleet regrouped, battered but victorious. Carter analyzed the aftermath, ensuring all enemy ships were either destroyed or disabled, and checked his own vessels for damage. Liara approached, her expression a mix of respect and disbelief. "You've changed everything I believed about humans," she said quietly. "I thought your species was weak, slow, and insignificant. I see now that I was wrong. You are remarkable." Carter nodded, a faint smile on his face. "We survive, we adapt, we find ways to win when it matters most. That's what humans do, and sometimes we even help others survive along the way. Liara studied him silently, understanding that her pride had blinded her to a truth she could no longer deny. Humans, underestimated and dismissed, had a resilience and ingenuity that could rival empires. She realized that her survival, and perhaps the survival of her people, might depend on such individuals. As the fleet returned to the outpost, the stars stretched endlessly around them, cold and silent witnesses to the unfolding events. Carter remained focused, analyzing readings, repairing minor systems, and preparing for the next challenge. Liara stayed close, her respect for him growing with every decision, every action, every demonstration of skill and calm. The outpost's lights came into view, and the human and alien crews began repairs and recalibration. Carter moved through the docks, checking every system, ensuring readiness for whatever came next. Liara observed quietly, reflecting on the lessons she had learned. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and now she understood why. In the quiet aftermath, she approached him. "You have proven yourself," she said softly. "But this is only the beginning, isn't it?" Carter looked up, calm as ever. "It is. They will not stop. The source behind the attacks remains. We need to be ready, and we need to be smarter than they are. That is what humans do best." Liara nodded, absorbing the weight of his words. Her arrogance had been tempered by necessity, her pride replaced with respect. The galaxy was changing, and she now understood that humans, underestimated and overlooked, could alter the course of events in ways even her empire had never imagined. And Carter, quiet but unshakable, prepared for the next challenge, knowing that human ingenuity, adaptability, and courage would once again be the key to survival, and perhaps the key to victory against a threat that no empire, no matter how powerful, could fully anticipate. Stars stretched endlessly around the fleet as it moved toward the source of the attacks. Carter stood on the bridge of his strike craft, eyes scanning the instruments, mind calculating every possibility. The outpost behind them was safe for the moment, but the larger threat, the hidden architects controlling the rogue warships, remained. This was the final confrontation, the culmination of every strategy, every improvisation, every decision he had made. Liara remained at his side in her Xyrthian vessel, watching him with a mixture of respect and nervous anticipation. She had learned humility, yes, but she still felt the weight of responsibility. Her people's survival, the reputation of her family, and the safety of the Helios sector rested on the decisions of a human she had once mocked. And yet, every observation she had made in the previous battles told her that his mind was capable of the impossible. Carter activated the long-range scanners, detecting faint energy signatures that pulsed like a heartbeat from deep within the asteroid belt. "There," he said calmly, "that is their base of operations. It's shielded, of course, but every shield has a weakness. Every fortress can be infiltrated." Liara studied him, skeptical but willing to trust. "And you know how to exploit it?" "I think I do," he replied. "But it will require precision, timing, and cooperation from both humans and aliens. This is not just about firepower. We have to think differently, act differently, and strike when they are most vulnerable." The fleet approached cautiously, weaving through the dense asteroid field. Enemy drones patrolled the perimeter, scanning for intruders, their energy pulses flickering faintly in the void. Carter's team moved with quiet efficiency, human and alien crews following his exact instructions. He had devised a plan that relied on their speed and unpredictability, baiting the drones into predictable patterns, creating openings, and then using those openings to penetrate the enemy base. Liara's ship followed his every movement, her hands steady on the controls, her mind focused entirely on his commands. For the first time, she realized that her own training and instincts, though formidable, were complemented perfectly by human ingenuity. Together, they formed a team that was greater than the sum of its parts. The first wave of drones engaged them, attacking with lethal precision. Carter guided the fleet, weaving through the attacks, using human improvisation to outmaneuver the enemy. Shields flared, energy blasts streaked across space, and ships twisted and rolled to avoid destruction. Carter's calculations were flawless, predicting enemy movements and turning potential catastrophe into controlled advantage. Liara could hardly believe what she saw. Humans, small and underestimated, were leading the assault against an enemy that her empire had always considered superior. Every maneuver, every tactical choice, demonstrated adaptability and intelligence beyond expectation. The fleet advanced deeper into the asteroid field. The enemy base loomed ahead, a massive construct of dark alloy and glowing energy conduits. Its defenses were formidable, rotating energy shields, automated gun turrets, and drone swarms that could overwhelm most fleets. But Carter had studied every pattern, every energy fluctuation, every timing cycle. He knew exactly where the weakness lay. "This is it," he said over the comms. "We strike at the core, timing is everything, wait for my signal." Liara's fingers hovered over her console, ready to fire at his command. "And if we miss?" she asked quietly, though she already knew the answer. Carter's eyes met hers, calm and unwavering. "We won't." The fleet split into precise formations, small strike crafts weaving through the debris, larger vessels providing covering fire. Carter piloted his craft through narrow gaps, dodging laser bursts and drone swarms with near-perfect timing. His mind worked in layers, predicting, adjusting, improvising all at once. The enemy detected their approach and fired with full power. Energy blasts tore through space, and some ships were struck, but Carter's coordination minimized the damage. Every human and alien crew followed his lead, trusting his calculations and instincts over fear. As they approached the core, Carter identified the exact moment when the energy shield would fluctuate, its only vulnerability. "Prepare to fire," he commanded. Liara and the other ships waited, tension tight in every vessel. The core rotated, and for a fleeting moment a window appeared, just enough for a precise strike. Carter's finger hovered over the control, and then he gave the signal. A coordinated volley of energy slammed into the core at the perfect angle. The base shuddered violently, shields collapsing, drones exploding in cascading destruction. Carter adjusted instantly, directing ships to avoid debris while maximizing damage to the core. Liara watched in awe as the massive construct shook and began to break apart. Carter's precise timing had exploited the single weakness in the seemingly impenetrable defenses. The enemy command systems faltered, their control over the rogue warships collapsing. "Status?" Liara asked, her voice tight with anticipation. "They're done," Carter replied calmly. "The core is offline. The rogue fleet will no longer be coordinated. It's over." Even as the immediate danger ended, Carter remained vigilant, scanning for hidden traps or secondary attacks. His human instinct for thoroughness and foresight prevented complacency. The enemy might have anticipated one defeat, but they could not predict the adaptability, resilience, and ingenuity of humans. The fleet regrouped, battered but triumphant. Liara's ship floated among the survivors, energy shields flickering as repairs began. She looked at Carter, seeing not just a human, but a strategist, a leader, and a mind capable of altering the course of events across the galaxy. "You," she began, her voice soft, almost vulnerable, "you have changed everything I believed about humans. I mocked you, underestimated you, and yet here you are. You have saved not only your outpost, but my people and my family. I owe you more than I can say." Carter gave a faint smile, brushing a hand over the console. "No one owes me anything. We all do what's necessary when it matters most. That's what humans do, and I'm glad to have allies who can follow instructions and adapt when it counts." Liara studied him, understanding fully for the first time. Her pride had taught her to dismiss humans, but experience had proven otherwise. Humans were not weaker. They were unpredictable, clever, and capable of overcoming challenges that even the mightiest empires might fail to meet. As repairs continued, Carter moved through the fleet, checking ships, recalibrating systems, and offering guidance. His presence inspired confidence. Humans and aliens alike followed his instructions without hesitation, knowing that his judgment and adaptability were the keys to their survival. Liara approached him again, a thoughtful expression on her face. "You've done more than survive," she said softly. "You've taught me to see differently. Humans are not just creatures to be managed or underestimated. They are partners, innovators, and fighters. I respect that. I respect you." Carter looked at her, calm but aware of the weight of her words. "Respect is earned," he said simply, "and today we earned it together." The stars above stretched endlessly, cold and indifferent witnesses to the battle's outcome, yet within the fleet warmth and relief filled the ships. The enemy had been defeated, their base destroyed, and the rogue warships disabled. The immediate threat was gone, but Carter and Liara both knew that vigilance would always be necessary. Liara's pride, once sharp and unyielding, had softened. She understood now that strength was not only measured in fleets or technology, but in courage, adaptability, and the willingness to think differently when survival depended on it. Humans embodied these qualities, and she would not underestimate them again. The fleet returned to the outpost, battered but victorious. The repairs began immediately, but there was a quiet sense of triumph that pervaded every corner. Carter moved through the docks, assisting where needed, guiding where necessary, and ensuring that every human and alien vessel was ready for the next challenge. Liara remained beside him, observing, reflecting, and learning. She no longer saw him as the human she had mocked. She saw him as an equal in intelligence, ingenuity, and courage, a partner capable of facing dangers no empire could fully anticipate. Finally, as the sun rose over the Helios sector, casting long golden rays across the outpost, Carter allowed himself a moment of rest. He looked at the ships, the repairs, and the quiet determination of both humans and aliens around him. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but today they had proven that human ingenuity could turn the tide of events, even against seemingly unbeatable odds. Liara approached once more, standing beside him in quiet reflection. "The galaxy has changed," she said softly. "And so have I, humans. You are more than I ever imagined. Today you have not only saved lives but changed how I will see the universe from this moment on." Carter looked at her calmly. "It's not about changing how anyone sees us. It's about surviving, adapting, and doing what's necessary. That's all humans have ever done, and sometimes that's enough to change everything else." Liara nodded, a faint smile on her face. Pride and arrogance had been replaced with understanding and respect. The galaxy was uncertain, dangerous, and vast, but she now knew that humans, underestimated and overlooked, could be the difference between survival and annihilation. The fleet prepared to move back toward the outpost, repaired and ready for the next mission. Carter piloted his craft with steady hands, scanning the stars for any signs of further threats, confident that humans would always find a way. Liara followed, her respect for him clear, her trust in human ingenuity absolute. And in that quiet, victorious moment, the galaxy seemed a little less intimidating. Humans had proven that even when mocked, underestimated, or dismissed, they could rise to the occasion, adapt to the impossible, and emerge victorious. The Heiress, once proud and dismissive, had learned a lesson that would stay with her forever. Humans were not to be underestimated, and in the vast expanse of space, they might just be the key to survival and triumph. The stars stretched on, silent witnesses, but the story of human courage and ingenuity had already begun to ripple across the galaxy. Carter's calm, steady mind had turned the tide, and Liara, watching him, understood that the human he had been, the human she had once mocked, had become the only hope, and the ultimate proof, that even the smallest, underestimated beings could shape the fate of empires.